Students of Tikata High School got involved in a terrible accident on their way to a tour, all because of one mistake. This is how it happened. What began as an exciting journey of discovery and laughter soon turned into an unimaginable tragedy. It was a bright Monday morning, and the students of Tikata High School gathered under the old shady mango tree for their usual morning assembly. Some students were still half asleep, standing as if their legs had refused to wake up, while others whispered excitedly about what the day might bring. Mr. Obua, the senior teacher, walked up to the front with his chest puffed out like a village chief about to make an important announcement. He cleared his throat dramatically, adjusted his oversized tie, and raised his hand for silence.
Hello, everyone. Please close your mouths and open your ears because I have a good news.
For a second, the students were quiet. Then, like lightning striking a dry tree, Odong, the sharpest and most notorious English expert in the school, shot his hand up. "Teacher, you said a good news, yet last week in English class you told us that news is uncountable. Shouldn't you say, 'I have good news' instead?" The students erupted in laughter, clapping and cheering. Some even stomped their feet, as if they had won a debate. Mr. Obua, not one to be defeated in front of his students, smiled mischievously and said, "Odong, my dear student, you remind me of my uncle who refused to eat because he said food is uncountable. He wanted only a food." By the time he corrected the grammar, hunger had already corrected him. Now, do you want grammar or good news? The students laughed so hard that one of them, Ojang, had to hold on to his friend to keep from falling. Once the laughter died down, Mr. Obua straightened his coat, looking like a man who had just won a battle, and continued, "Now, unless you want to behave like a stubborn goat being pulled to eat grass but resisting, yet it is for its own good, you need to listen carefully. We have organized a school tour that will expose you to things you don't know." The murmurs among the students grew louder. One student, Alma, turned to her friend and whispered, "Did he just say we are goats?" Her friend replied, "I don't know, but if the goat is going on a tour, I am happy to be one." Mr. Obua continued, "Some of you have never seen a flat house before. I don't want you to behave like that villager who saw a tall building and said it was houses carrying each other, or the pit latrine digger who saw a tractor and screamed, 'Wolololo! The tent is moving while cooking!'" At this point, the students were on the floor, laughing and holding their stomachs. Even the most serious ones couldn't contain themselves. Mr. Obua wiped imaginary sweat from his forehead and declared, "Now the cost of this tour is half of your school fees. Go and tell your parents." And just like that, the students scattered like chickens after seeing a hawk. The convincers and the confused ones that evening, some students used all their persuasive skills to convince their parents. One particularly cunning student, Kamali, approached his father as he was resting under the big mango tree. "Papa, the school has changed how we pay school fees. We now pay half first, and they take us on a tour so that when we return, we are refreshed to understand why we are paying the remaining fees." His father, half asleep, mumbled, "Eh? School fees now has installments." "Yes, Papa. And if you don't pay, they might even remove my name from the school register." Fearing that his son would be chased from school, Kamali's father quickly found the money. Meanwhile, Awilo, who had misunderstood what Mr. Obua said, ran home panting and shouted, "Mama! Mama! The school fees has been reduced. We are only paying half this term." His mother, who was busy grinding millet, stopped and smiled. "Are you sure?" "Yes." The teacher himself said so. Even the students were clapping. The next morning, Awilo's mother marched proudly to school with only half the school fees. When she reached the bursar's office, she announced, I have come to pay the new school fees. Thank God they have reduced it. The bursar, who was sipping tea, almost choked. Madam, school fees has not changed. That day, Awilo learned that misinterpreting a teacher's words can lead to serious consequences, especially when his mother finished reviewing his ears at home. When it was time to pay for the tour, some students strutted around the school like VIPs because they had paid. I don't talk to people who haven't paid tour fees, Tim declared, flipping his collar dramatically. You people are local. Those who hadn't paid tried to form a resistance movement. One of them, Arak, declared, "We shall also tour. If we can't go to the city, we shall tour the school compound in slow motion." Even the students who had paid the tour fees were now confused. Hey, did we really pay for a trip? Or did we just donate money? One student, who had just handed over his money, asked, "Teacher, does this tour come with breakfast?" Mr. Obuwa sighed deeply and responded, "No, but it comes with an unforgettable experience." The day before the trip, the excitement was at its peak. The students who had paid were busy packing. Some carried snacks as if they were traveling to another country. One girl, Atim, looked at her bag and said, "I don't trust Ugandan food. I have packed my own." Another student asked, "Have you ever left Uganda?" "No, but I want to be ready just in case." Meanwhile, the students who had not paid were still plotting their way onto the trip. One of them, Osin, said, "I will hide in the bus engine. By the time they find me, we shall be far." Another student, who had been quiet the whole time, finally spoke up. "Guys, let's just accept our fate. We shall watch the bus leave and pretend we didn't want to go." The next morning, the bus arrived. It was a big, beautiful vehicle, so shiny that the students could see their reflections in it. "Is this a car or a mirror?" one student asked. "Even if it is a mirror, as long as it takes me away from school, I am happy," another replied. Mr. Obuwa stood at the entrance of the bus like a strict immigration officer. "If you paid, enter. If you didn't, wave at us with both hands." The students who hadn't paid waved so dramatically that people thought they were saying goodbye forever. As the bus roared to life and prepared to leave, the students inside cheered, while those left behind shouted, "Bring us back something!" And with that, the journey began. As the bus roared down the highway, the students of Tikata High School were buzzing with excitement. For many of them, this was their first time traveling such a long distance, and the thrill of the journey had turned them into a choir of chatterboxes. Some students, unable to sit still, stood up in the bus, their heads popping above the seats like curious meerkats. "Hey, look, the trees are moving backward," Ojang shouted, pointing excitedly out of the window. "Ah, Ojang, you mean to tell me you didn't know trees can also run when a car passes?" his friend Alma teased, laughing. "These trees are confused. They don't know where they are going," another student added, shaking his head as if he had just discovered a new scientific phenomenon. The bus erupted into laughter, and even Mr. Obuwa, who had been busy making sure the students behaved, chuckled. Meanwhile, Atim, who had confidently carried her bag full of snacks, started searching around the bus for something. "Hey, where is the toilet in this bus?" she asked loudly. The students turned to look at her in confusion. "Ojang, you are in charge of nonsense. Explain to her," one of the boys said, laughing. Ojang grinned and said, "Atim, this is not a plane. There's no toilet here. If you want to go, just raise your hand and tell the driver to stop so you can do log co in the bush." Atim's eyes widened in horror. "You mean I have to go in the bush like a wild animal? What if a snake greets me?" "Then you will greet it back," another student joked, sending everyone into laughter. As the bus continued speeding along the road, They suddenly reached a railway crossing. Just as they were about to pass, a long train whistled and chugged by. The students gasped, some standing up and pressing their faces against the windows. "Hey, look at that thing! The bus has joined!" shouted one boy, O Guang. "Wait, teacher, how many drivers are driving that bus?" another asked, scratching his head in confusion. Mr. Obua sighed and adjusted his tie. "That is not a bus, that is a train!" The students turned to one another in disbelief. "But teacher, it is connected like our desks in class. If one falls, all of them will fall." "Hey, I think I have to be a bus driver in the future," said one of the boys, nodding seriously. "You mean a train driver?" Mr. Obua corrected. "Ah, it's the same thing. A bus that is long is just a train," the student declared confidently, making everyone roar with laughter. The journey continued, with students pointing at everything they saw. Some thought electricity poles were actually trees with no leaves. Others were amazed by the smooth tarmac road, while a few tried counting the number of vehicles they passed. Finally, they arrived at their destination, a bustling city filled with tall buildings, bright lights, and strange sights. The students pressed their faces against the bus windows in amazement. "Hey, this place is like a different country," one of them exclaimed. "Look at that building, it is touching the sky," another shouted. The driver parked near a big shopping mall, and the students poured out of the bus, their mouths wide open. Everything was new to them. The automatic doors at the entrance of the mall opened by themselves, and one student screamed, "Wolololo! This door is bewitched." Mr. Obua shook his head. "No, my dear students, it is automatic." "But teacher, what if it refuses to open and we get stuck inside forever?" "It won't refuse. Just walk and it will open," the teacher reassured them. Inside the mall, the students were even more amazed. The shiny floors, the bright lights, the escalators, everything looked magical. One student, a Wilo, stood staring at an escalator for a long time. "Teacher, that staircase is moving," he whispered, scared. "It's called an escalator. You step on it and it takes you up," Mr. Obua explained. Awilo shook his head. "No, teacher, if I step there, I might never come back." The students laughed, but Awilo refused to try it. Instead, he chose to use the normal stairs. The group continued exploring, visiting a museum where they saw dinosaur bones, a zoo where they saw lions, and a park where they had lunch. Some students were so excited that they forgot to eat, running around instead and taking pictures with their small button phones. Then something unexpected happened. Ojang, the same student who thought trees were moving backward, went to a shop to buy a drink. He saw a shiny bottle and, thinking it was water, poured some on his hands to wash them. Immediately he screamed, "Ah, this water is biting me!" The other students turned to look at him. "Ojang, that is not water. That is soda," Atim said, laughing. "But why is it in a bottle like water? I have been deceived," Ojang cried. The students laughed so hard that even the shopkeeper joined in. Ojang, embarrassed but laughing at himself, licked his fingers and nodded. "Hey, but it tastes nice. Maybe I should start washing my hands with soda every day." As the day continued, another problem arose. One of the students, little Akello, got lost. She had been distracted by a man selling balloons, and before she knew it, she couldn't see the rest of the group. Meanwhile, the other students were busy enjoying themselves, unaware that one of them was missing. It wasn't until Mr. Obua did a head count that they realized Akello was gone. "Wolololo, the tour has turned into hide and seek," one student joked. "Who lost Akello? She is too small to be missing," another said. They all ran in different directions, calling out her name. Finally, they found her standing near an ice cream shop, happily licking a cone. "Akello, we have been looking for you," Atim scolded. "But I was just eating ice cream," she said innocently. "But how did you buy it?" A man saw me looking lost and asked if I wanted ice cream. I said yes, and he bought me one. The students burst into laughter. Hey, so you are lost, but you are still eating ice cream? Okello just shrugged. It is sweet. Finally, after a long day of fun, discovery, and laughter, Mr. Obua called the students together and reminded them that it was time to regroup. The students gathered, still talking excitedly about everything they had seen. Some were already making plans for when they would come back on their own. Others were still arguing over whether the escalator was actually safe to use. Mr. Obua shook his head, smiling. At least now, you have seen more than just the village. This was a trip to remember. And with that, the students prepared themselves for the next part of their adventure. As the sun began to set, the students of Tikata High School boarded the bus, their faces glowing with excitement and exhaustion. The day had been one of discovery, laughter, and unforgettable experiences. Even the most talkative among them now sat quietly, their minds still processing all the wonders they had seen. The bus rumbled to life, and as they drove past the city lights, a student named Ogwang stretched and yawned loudly. Today has been too much. I don't even know where to start when narrating to my parents. What will you tell them? Atim asked, shifting in her seat. Ogwang grinned. First of all, I will tell them that this country has doors that open by themselves, buildings that touch the sky, and stairs that move on their own. The whole bus burst into laughter. And I will tell my mother that people here wash their hands with sweet water. If she wants proof, I will show her my fingers. I can still taste the soda. Even Mr. Obua, who had been listening silently, laughed and shook his head. Ogwang, you are going to confuse your parents. Please tell them the truth, not the version that will make them think you went to another planet. Another student, Awilo, spoke up. Teacher, for me, I am still wondering about that train. If buses are connected like that, I think I need to become a driver of such a long bus in the future. You mean a train driver? The teacher corrected. Hey, it is the same thing, teacher. Whether it moves on a road or on a railway, as long as it is long, I want to drive it. The students laughed again. The journey continued, with students singing, cracking jokes, and sharing their favorite moments from the tour. Some, too exhausted, dozed off, their heads swaying with the motion of the bus. The driver drove steadily, navigating the winding roads back toward Tikata. Then, suddenly, disaster struck. A loud bang shattered the cheerful atmosphere as one of the front tires burst. The driver struggled to control the vehicle, but the bus swerved violently off the road. Students screamed as the bus tumbled, rolling twice before crashing into a ditch. Then, there was silence. Dust filled the air. The groans of the injured could be heard as students crawled out of the wreckage. Some were bleeding, others crying, calling for their friends. Mr. Obua, though injured, tried to help as many as he could. He called names, hoping to hear responses. But 6 students did not answer. The reality of the tragedy struck like lightning. The joyful journey had ended in sorrow. The students who had laughed just hours ago now wept as they saw their fallen friends lying still. Rescue teams soon arrived, sirens piercing through the night as ambulances rushed to take the injured to the hospital. Parents, upon hearing the news, hurried to the scene, their hearts heavy with fear. The following days were filled with mourning. The entire school grieved the loss of their classmates. What had begun as a journey of excitement had ended in unimaginable pain. Mr. Obua, addressing the school after the funeral, spoke with a deep voice filled with sorrow. We have lost our dear students, but let us not forget the lesson in all this. Life is fragile, and we must always pray before we travel. He paused, then quoted, "The Lord will watch over your coming and going both now and forevermore." Psalm 121:8. If we had prayed before leaving, maybe things would have been different. But let this remind us all that we must never take anything for granted. Every journey, every step should be placed in God's hands. The Bible says, "Call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you will honor me." Psalm 50, verse 15. Let us always seek God's protection before we move anywhere. The students nodded, reflecting on the truth of his words. From that day forward, Tikata High School made it a tradition to pray before every journey, big or small. And so, the tragic tour remained a lesson to all who heard the story, a reminder that life is unpredictable, and only God's protection can keep us safe. Think about the times you started a journey without seeking God's protection. Prayer is essential before any trip. Type, "O Lord, forgive me for all the journeys I have ever taken without praying. Keep me safe always. Amen."